Three, two, one, and we are live. Welcome, my dears. Happy New Year. Welcome to A Nose, the one and only channel dedicated entirely to the lesser known, to the long forgotten, to the obscure gems in perfumery, where we don't sell anything, where we buy our own stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with gifts, but you know what I mean, where you can learn about stuff other people don't talk about. And today I would like to speak about something that has been kind of like brushed over, something that's been not enough tackled, something that's been kind of under the scenes. Hey, I'm sorry, I'm not alone anymore. I have a cat. Who's very territorial apparently and wants to grab at everything that smells like me. That should be confusing enough in this household. Anyway, today we're doing a comparison. I've never done a comparison, and it's not going to be a head-to-head fragrance to fragrance, because that is not my purpose necessarily, but we will be talking about something that I believe needs to stay in collective memory and given the space it deserves. Let's see, who do we have live? Rich Mitch, hello. Welcome. Cornelia, my mom is here. Geza from Prague. Juana, hello. Happy 2020. That's right. Rich says, hello, Prague from Newcastle. Brother Lucas is here. Poland is with us. Lexa from Bucharest. Julie Ashfaq from Dhaka. Welcome, my friend. I do hope we're going to see each other face to face one day. If Sultan is there, that's going to be even better. But until then, I am happy to have you. Today, like I said, we're going to be talking about what was there before Clive Christian. Now, Clive Christian is a house many of you love, a house many of you heard about, and a house that I'm a fan of, even though the practices are not necessarily something to die for. But it's a house of quality. It's a house of good design. It's a house that resonates with a lot of people because it's easy to wear, easy to like, easy to recognize as such. Bye-bye, Mr. Socks. And I am alone. Nobody's picking up my butt anymore. But what was there before Clive Christian? Who is this elusive character, designer of kitchens and luxury home items, who at some point decided to start a perfumery house. Before Clive Christian came into being, hello Anka and Florentina. Thank you. Before Clive Christian came into being, there's a house called the Crown Perfumery. The Crown Perfumery was started in 1872. If that sounds familiar, I will provide a reference for you a little bit later. It was started in 1872, and because of their commitment to excellency, excellence, to quality, to consistency, to seriousness, to, a job well done, they received the Crown Order from Queen Victoria, who, in order to recognize their efforts and contributions to perfumery at large, and this is at a time, remember, when, Guerlain was lifting up, when Pivet, when Coty were going strong in France, and even the Americas had their own big magnatous kind of launches and houses growing out of nothing. The Crown Perfumery was awarded not only the distinction of being of the utmost quality, but also the exclusive right to use the crown as a symbol for their brand and marketing. In other words, this was the one perfumery at that time in England, in the United Kingdom, allowed to use the crown as a symbol of quality for personal brand and image purposes, and that was awarded by the Queen herself. of course, we need to keep that in mind when we analyze this house, when we look at this house, because it's a now defunct house. It stopped its production quite a while ago. Royal warrant, thank you. That is it. Royal warrant to use the symbol of the crown for representation of their brand. Thank you. Hola, Abdel. And catch my whiff. Good to have you. So the Crown Perfumery, like I said, was started in 1872, was distinctive, was new, was quality, was royal, was representing of what the United Kingdom was trying to project in the world at that time. And as such, grew quite quickly, even though their launches were not that many. If you search the Royal Crown Perfumery, the Crown Perfumery company, you will not find that many titles. Their releases were far between. They're paying a lot of attention to the way they calculated, I would say, their portfolio, because it is very clear that they were trying to do a little bit of everything and disperse their nuances on the palette they had chosen as representative for themselves in a way that would allow for most styles popular at the time to be represented. In other words, they had a jasmine one, they had a fougere one, they had this or that. Fougere, as close as fougere as it could have been at that time, before the style was completely nailed down by Houbigant. But that being said, again, they don't have that many fragrances in the portfolio. I believe at last count, I had found about 18. Of course, if you look on the directories, you're not going to find 18. You're going to find less than that. But this is where I come in as a researcher and a documentarist. There are more. And today I'm actually going to speak about the one that doesn't show anywhere in the listings. So today, that's what you're going to walk away with. So Crown Perfumery starts in 1872. They launch fragrances very far between. The nose on these fragrances is always the same person, and his name is William Thompson. You will find that some releases are newer. The last one dates from the 1980s, but most of the fragrances were built in the 30s, teens, 20s. Most of them were built in the 30s. Dora from the Isle of Man. Hello. And Letizia from Romania. And yes, I think we're all here. So most of the fragrances were launched in the 20s and 30s. The vast majority of them were launched in the 30s, and they were relaunched in the 80s. Now, I couldn't find any information on whether or not they were reformulated. I would guess some of them were. The packaging has changed slightly with the 80s releases, and the one that I'm going to present today is from the 80s. And like I said, does not show in any directory anywhere. You won't find this fragrance in too many places. I have not done extra research recently because I've had this for quite a few years now, and I have not done extra research recently because I want the information to be fresh. I didn't want to find any notes. When I had gotten it, there was nothing anywhere about this fragrance. Now I believe you still can't find it on Fragrantica. I have not checked elsewhere. So the notes I will be discussing are off the cuff, from my nose and from my notes. The Crown Perfumery ceased production at some point, and in 1999, it was purchased by Clive Christian. Just to show you a quick look. the reason for which Clive Christian purchased this perfumery is because he wanted to be able to use the crown in on Wall Street. This procedure, conceptual procedure, maybe the mechanics of it are not the same, but this conceptual procedure is called reverse merger, when one active company is mixing with a defunct or non-functioning company in order to buy the shell, to englobate its meaning, its brand, its intangible values. So it's kind of like marrying up. If I am smart and beautiful and talented and fertile and young and whatever else, but I'm poor, and I marry into somebody but I'm rich, and I marry into somebody who's poor but aristocratic, the new fusion creates something that is aristocratic, carries the name, and has the resources to continue the activity, whatever it may be. So that's why you see a lot of mafia guys, a lot of come from nothing people, nouveau riche people buying titles for themselves, because sometimes that is the only way to guarantee that the intrinsic value matches the outwardly projection of one's self. If that doesn't make sense, please let me know. If it does, consider, and some bankers, consider the fact that, in my humble opinion, this is what happened with Clive Christian, who had the money, who had the idea, but it needed the name, it needed the prestige, it needed the legal rights and the royal order warrant to use the crown. The only way to do that was to literally eat the closed up business of the Crown Perfumery. As a result, the presentation is identical except for the color of the bottle, which used to be dark brown or green in some cases for Crown Perfumery, and the cap, which is metal in Clive Christian and plastic in the 80s Crown Perfumery, but used to be metal before that. Everything else is identical, including the markings on some of the bottles. I'm going to show you another one here, in which you can see the embossing. It's identical. This is what I'm talking about. So 1999 comes around. Clive Christian purchases the manufacturing plant, the perfumery buildings and machinery and everything that came with it. And at some point, my ambition as a documentarist and my propensity to to like a good cheapie determined me to do a lot of side-by-side comparisons between Clive Christian launches and all the Crown Perfumery fragrances I could get my hands on. That did not go anywhere. I was determined that he also repurposed some of the formulas. Up until now, I have to admit, I have not found that to be true. I don't think, or I don't know of any situations in which Clive Christian also repurposed the formulas from the Crown Perfumery and repackaged them in the new bottles and sells them for $400, $500, $600, $700. That I have not found to be true yet. If I ever do, I will be the first one to call, to whistleblow. But as of now, I have to give Caesar what belongs to Caesar and allow Clive Christian to have this. All that I've smelled so far is not similar or identical with any of the Crown Perfumery bottles I've gotten my nose on. Now, I have purchased these, several of them. I think I had 4 in total. This is my second to last one. The other one is lost somewhere in some bottles. I was not able to find it again. But I chose to speak about this one because, again, this one does not show in any directory anywhere. As far as I know, at the time when I bought it, it was not listed anywhere. So that's what I'm going buy, because I want the review to be honest and unhindered. I don't like to condition myself, so that's why I'm doing this. So let's talk about the Crown Perfumery. The fragrance I want to talk about today is called Sarcantus, which after consulting with some of my botanist friends, I have quite a few friends in a lot of different fields. I understand is a family of orchids that is actually smelly. Most orchids don't smell much, particularly those that we see listed in perfumery as orchid accord or vanilla orchid. The vanilla flower actually doesn't smell. But the Sarcanthus family, Calliopesis, I believe is called, which would kind of make sense. Kali from Greek means beautiful. Calligraphy is calligraphia. Beautiful. Graphos means sign. Beautiful signing. Beautiful writing. So Calliope is actually a name that means the beautiful. Anything with Kali, California, I don't know. That's a different story. But Calliopesis maybe means beautiful opsis, whatever that is. Can't think of anything. But it's a family of flowers, flowering plants, found everywhere around the world in tropical areas. That is fragrant, not necessarily tropically fruity, but flowery green from what I understand. And this is exactly what this is. So Sarcanthus from Crown Perfumery. I kept the box and I want to show it to you because you might not see it too frequently. The Crown Perfumery always in the 80s releases bottles looks the same in these off-white plus yellow gold markings. The Crown Perfumery symbol is here. It says CP with a crown on top. Of course, the Clive Christian bottle has exactly the same thing, which is kind of a mystery to me. Why would you keep CP if it's CC now? And on the Clive Christian bottle, you would see it says established 1872. 1872 is also where Crown Perfumery was established. So when you see established 1872 on Clive Christian, know that they refer to the age of their manufacturing plant, not the age of the house of Clive Christian. They borrowed it from the fact that the manufacturing plants and business they bought was the Crown Perfumery, and indeed established 1872, as you see here. In fact, Clive Christian has one of their original bottles, 1872, original fragrances from the original collection, named 1872, which is the year of launching the Crown Perfumery, which in 1999 only was bought by Clive Christian. So, hi, Peter. And hi, Anna. And Quentin Mathieu from Belgium. Supposed to study right now? Well, you are, my dear. You are. Dan Lazarescu, welcome. All right, so thank you. Tell others. So this is how Clive Christian borrowed, like I said, a shell of a company through the same, not financial methods as a reversed merger, which is usually practiced on Wall Street to help foreign companies list on the stock markets in America. It's a procedure that I actually operated with because I worked on Wall Street. That's a different story for later. But if you ever have questions about that, it's basically the procedure from which, just like people who are trying to ascend, they're nouveau riche, but peasants, and they marry a poor aristocrat, to borrow the name. It's the same kind of process. Luckily, Clive Christian still makes good stuff. I only have a few. This one that I just showed you is a fake that I bought knowing it's a fake. We will talk about that at a later date. I just needed to do my studying, to do testing side by side and so on. So this one is a fake. I'll talk about it later, but I used it to show that the 1872 that they launched is in fact the launch date, not of Clive Christian, but the Crown Perfumery, which was inglobated and eaten up by Clive Christian. They also closed it. The fragrance that I want to talk about today from the Crown Perfumery is the one that you won't find on any directory. It didn't show on any directory when I bought it a few years ago. At that time, I bought 4 of them because they were $22 on eBay. I bought them just because they rang a bell. I had heard of Crown Perfumery, I don't know where from, and they looked like Clive Christian, so I decided to take the jump. The money was meager compared to what I got. I do believe it was a good purchase. Today, if we're talking about pricing, this, I don't know what it would go for because there's none of it anywhere online. But the Malabar, which is a more popular and frequently seen fragrance from the Crown Perfumery, goes up to $200. The Tanglewood Bouquet, which I had, is also about the same thing, and it's in floral, spicy floral. And I've had Esterhazy, I think, Bouquet, which was slightly different. I have been looking for Eau du Quinine, which is a quinine, theoretically, fragrance that is probably smelling tonic. That's how I imagine it. Very barbershop of the turn of the last century. So if you see it, you'll probably be lucky to give it a nose. Please let me know what it smells like. But that one I've only seen in old bottles, even though that's the only one that shows as launched in the 80s, which is very interesting. Nobody has all this information in one place, so I decided to do it today. So it stays. So this is what the box looks like. I actually went as far as Google Map, pretty much everything. There is some overlap between all the addresses that I find associated with the Crown Perfumery and some of the addresses I could dig out for Clive Christian, but not enough information to pinpoint and say that is it. So I'm not going to go further than that. You will see the crown again on the top, and it says established 1872. Once we go in, is there any connection between Penhaligon's Malabar and see? Very slight, very slight. I believe they have the same source of inspiration, but executionally very slight. Malabar is an aromatic, rather, like an oriental aromatic in the way they find, aromatic elixir or some of the old Estée Lauder and stuff like that, which I don't find oriental at all, but that was their interpretation at that time of Orientalism. Malabar from Penhaligon is in a different realm altogether. So I would say it's just the inspiration, the character who's inspired both fragrances. That's the same, but that's about it. Sarcanthus is an eau de parfum. Looks like this, presents like this. The top is identical with a Clive Christian top. Sorry. Tops are identical with the mention that this is plastic as of the 80s. Before the 80s, it was also made of, it won't focus because my face is there. Before the 80s, it was also metal. It's absolutely identical. Nothing to be said about it. No marking on this one. But as you can see, the size, dimension, all the detailing is identical. So if you've ever held a Clive Christian cap, this is exactly the same. Inside the cap, there's this. None of them have it. Okay. Inside the cap, there's a mark. I don't know why I wouldn't focus today, but I do want you to see it. On the sprayer, there's a mark. On the back, there's the mark just like this. Hello, Mr. Oz. We're talking about a house that was purchased by Clive Christian and copied in everything. Well, not copied, borrowed as a symbol and provider of markings. And I'm talking about the one fragrance that doesn't seem to show in directories or wasn't listed in directories when I bought it. And that is called Sarcanthus. Sarcanthus, like I said, is a family of orchids smelling green, flowery something. Now, when I saw Sarcanthus and learned what it was, I was convinced that I'm going to find hints of it in 1872, which is, again, the year in which Crown Perfumery was launched, and not Clive Christian. That is just a prestige thing they borrowed. And there are some overlapping nuances in that the 1872 to my nose presents a slightly lactonic in the same way fennel flowers are. A little bit not anisic, but more like angelica. So that is the type of greenness both of them share. But apart from that, there are no major similarities that would warrant me to say this is the formula this is based on. Maybe it is, but we'll never know. To my nose, they're different enough to consider them two separate fragrances. Now, Sarcanthus is, like I said, a green floral. When I say green floral, there are a few plants in particular that I would include here. Before I go into them and into the perceived notes, I want to mention one thing. The styling of this is old. The aesthetic. So when I say styling, I mean neutral, feminine, but not sexualized. I believe this was launched as a Parfum. And demure and performance-wise, very discreet, the same way a lady should be. And, that's why I'm calling the styling slightly old. When it comes to the aesthetic, now that is what I think British aesthetic is in projection to the outside world, and that is restrained, fresh, relatively fresh, or even the Orientals produced by British houses are not as Oriental as you might imagine. The most Oriental thing about them usually is a little bit of cardamom and some tea-like spices. Usually British perfumery is somewhat aerated. It's somewhat transparent and ever so slightly unisex, in my opinion. There are very few British houses that I consider to be polarized or polarizing. So from that perspective, this is very British. This is very clean. This is very paisley, if you want. Starchy, interesting. Starchy as in stiff, or starchy as in texturally like this? Oh, okay, got it. So this is of course no exception, and considering the fact that this was, I believe, launched in 1931 initially, and then reissued in the 80s. Hi, Andrea. It makes a lot of sense. Now, for some people who would enjoy, for example, an Omon Jane, for some people who would like barbershop fragrances, including men. For some people who prefer natural smelling florals rather than interpretive florals or sexualized hinting florals. That was not elegant, but I hope you know what I mean. I think this is right up some alley because it's easy to wear. It's distinct, but not in your face. It's just strong enough to announce presence, but it's not, a beast mode anything. And its presence is very enveloping in a way that makes it part of the ambient rather than part of one person in particular. It's discreet. Correct. Those, with the caveat that those are polarizing and polarized in and of themselves. So I said usually, unless they're polarizing, typical British perfumeries and aesthetics are of the kind I've tried to describe. Now you've just ruined my flow and ebb. No, you haven't. You never do. Cool. Rich says cool. I don't know what that means, but sure. Sounds very cool. Cool. How do you find this? Oh, in my opinion, it is ever so slightly cool. All right, Sarcanthus. Sarcanthus is green and floral. Sarcanthus has a bed of very typical and nondescript wooden base. I would guess there's some regular sandalwood, good quality, clean, but not very particularly creamy or very particularly deep. It's there just to support. There are some herby notes to them. Like I said, I feel a little bit of coo. I still don't know what coo means. Oh, quack. I'm not gonna do that. Coo. 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 There are some herby notes, sweet herby notes, like sweet marjoram, like summer savory, maybe a slight, very slight minty, very slight minty note. It might come from something else. Maybe it's like a metallic tuberose, just a hint. Then there are some green flowers. In the green flowers, I include lily of the valley, which is always a green flower to my nose. Some of the acacia flowers or black locust, even though they're very perfumey and very almost white, they are not quite white. And sometimes when they're woodier or wetter, they smell green. Again, a little bit of Angelica, which is the common thread with 1872, which is part of the original collection launched by Clive Christian right after they bought this in 1999. And Angelica is in between. That's a hard one to describe. In between fennel flowers, lactonic notes, a little bit of celery root, and something else. It's a tough note to describe to me. Maybe if anybody else can do it, I would be forever in your debt. So these are a contingent of green flowers that are not particularly leafy, not necessarily in your face pergola like ivy-like green. It's a very delicate, very garden under the rain type of green. It's nondescript, well blended, and comfortable. And then there's a Kyle, hi. And then there's a jasmine bucket. Garden jasmine. Jasmine bucket hitting you. Not really. Not really. I wouldn't know. I've been digging very deep, looking for. Sometimes it smells the way chrysanthemum buds taste. If you're a tea drinker and you engage in drinking chrysanthemum tea, if at any point you start chewing on a chrysanthemum bud, the sensation in the back of your throat is similar with something in this, but it doesn't smell like chrysanthemum. It doesn't smell like tagettes or marigolds. It doesn't smell like galbanum. It doesn't go into chamomile even. It doesn't go into the yellow bitterness. No, it does not. Smell and taste are similar, but not quite in manifestation. So it's a little bit odd that I don't find it bitter in those kinds of ways. It's simply just green, flowery, leafy, flowery, sweet, leafy, flowery. I would assume there's a little bit of coumarin in here. But the jasmine is very natural smelling. There is a sensation of an aldehydic presence. I don't know what kind. I feel fuzz of apricot and peach, very slight, very, very slight, more textural than smell-wise. There's a roundness and the sweetness to this that is surprising from something that old and something that British, in my opinion. There is a... Seriously, how would I know what Malay gooseberry is? You guys are sometimes asking me questions that puzzle me and flatter me at the same time, because I can't imagine you truly believe I know it all. If you do, you're very mistaken, sir. I have no idea what a Malay gooseberry is, but let me look it up. Why not? Can somebody... Malay gooseberry. Maybe I know it. No, I do not. I can say with absolute certainty that I have no idea what this is, or if you're supposed to eat it or stick it in your ear when it hurts. No idea. But you eat it or you describe it to me, and maybe we can... Le rayon vert. I don't think I've tried that one. And let's see if I have it. Because I do what I do, and I keep going back to the... Give me 1 second, please. Le rayon vert, number 20. I will try it now. Why don't I? Number 20. We're going to do a side to side. Let me see what I can find to... Nope. No, sir. Straight from... Nope. Okay. This is too aromatic. This is too aromatic. This has Artemisia in it. See, Artemisia to me takes it into poison green, into ivy green. There's oak moss in here. There's hyacinth. No, those are too strong, too aromatic. This is not the type of green I mean. The type of green in this one is softer. It's more floral, nondescript, softer. Exaltatum, hello. Your pergola is a poison green as well. If you guys haven't tried Exaltatum fragrances, please make sure you give them a nose. I think they're excellent. I think Eglia Vaitkevice did a fantastic job creating a very coherent collection. I think all of them are a fantastic start, a great launch of a house, and you should try. But we're talking about a green that is not that green. It is not pergola green, and it is definitely not Le Rayon Vert from Sultan, which I just sniffed for the first time, and I'm getting a lot of Artemisia and oak moss and hyacinth, maybe some sage. I believe this has sage. It's in the same realm as angelica flowers. It's a green aromatic, slightly lactonic, creamier green. But I think this is saved by this very genuine and gentile jasmine. A bucket of it, not very indolic, towards soapy. That's what I'm saying. I think I feel some sort of lifting aldehydes. I believe there's a little bit of coconut in the back and slightly sweet, slightly lactonic, not very aromatized, if you want. But all of this comes together. I don't think there's wormwood in here. That's what I'm saying. The royal Le Rayon Vert here, closer. And again, please, I don't think this warrants this much effort from this many perfumers and amazing noses on this thread. I think this is like the most expert group of people we can ever have on a live, because it is a rather simplistic fragrance. Like I said, it's very British, but very old British. It was initially launched in 1931. So don't expect something completely sophisticated. This is not that, but it's very well blended, and it's very coherent. It makes sense for what it is. It makes sense for the collection. It makes sense for where the collection comes from. And I'm only presenting it to you as such, and because I want it to be documented somewhere. When I purchased it, there was nothing on Sarcantus. I'm going by my notes and my nose right now from back then. Like I said, I did not research this in particular because I don't like to condition myself before I test something. But when I got it, there was no mention of it anywhere on the internetics. It was in no database. It was not listed. It was not described. Nobody knew about it. I still can't find it anywhere. So I wanted it to get some sort of exposure and to be documented somewhere in some sort of library of dead fragrances. So just add light. Welcome. This is a party. Woo-hoo! Good. So yeah, Sarcantus. Just to recap, I picked Sarcantus from the 2 bottles I now have, the other one being lost somewhere because this nobody talks about, and I have not met somebody who has it. But I also picked the house because I wanted to highlight the fact that the Clive Christian brand is built through a caparation, inglobation, merging, or call it what you want, with a royal decree warranted perfumery called the Crown Perfumery, launched in 1872, just like you see here. and caring of the true prestige, I guess, for what today got transferred to the house of Clive Christian, which I like, use, and is perfectly fine. Brown dude there blushing about, oh, I thought a kink. Got it. So posh. There's nothing posh about me, but there is something posh about this. And I think it presents the way true aristocrats do. From my humble opinion, I didn't grow up with them. My grandparents were barely literate, if that, some of them. So I grew up without plumbing. I have not met that many aristocrats, and the ones that I have met happened to me or upon me later in life, thankfully. But from my humble experience, they tend to not display blood. Their green, blue blood, green blood. I don't know. Sultan says, I've crowned Heliothrope. Nice. Fantastic. Oh, Crown Park Royal. Have I? I don't know. I have to look in off the top of my head, I don't know. I don't know. I have to look into my notes. I have a huge library of library card notes, kind of, now transferred almost all on the internetics in my Google documents, my faithful online folders. So I have to look. If you have recommendations, please let me know. So just to recap, today we've talked about, the coup part is going to be the main thing we're walking away with. Coup, or should I say coup? As you can tell, nothing aristocratic about this one. But today I talked about the Crown Perfumery, which is a fragrance house established in 1872, given a royal warrant by Queen Victoria to use the symbol and iconography of the crown as a recognition of their efforts and contribution to perfumery at large. It represented very carefully and very distinctly the British perfumery in a world where the French were coming up with a lot. Guerlain was getting up at about the same time. Coty was getting up at about the same time. Pivert. Around the world, there were houses that were developing at about the same time. So this was chosen to represent the Crown Perfumery, I guess. Cool. In 1999, it was purchased by Clive Christian, who merged their own business with the persona and prestige of Crown Perfumery to create what we today perceive as a very prestigious house, that of Clive Christian, forgetting that they borrowed quite a lot from the company they assimilated, to which I want to present my honors today, to which I want to make sure our attention goes, and to which I want to give credit every single time we're thinking about Clive Christian as a prestige house. Again, they were not started in 1872. They only are able to use that, plus the visuals, and let me show you the bottle again, because, and thanks to the fact that they purchased the Crown Perfumery, and by association, they are now perfumery royalty. So that's it for today, folks. Thank you for being with me. Thank you all for logging in. All of you are kick asses. All of you are amazing noses. I recognize names to which I bow, and I've bowed since before you knew I existed. So thank you for joining in. Thank you for participating with information. I think it's amazing that you do. This is the whole point of this. Please remember to tell others you think might enjoy this kind of nerdy facts about perfumes and perfumery. Stick around, give me ideas, send me gifts. No. Yeah, sure, but no. Make sure you follow my Patreon. I don't have one. I'm just being an ass right now. Aristocrats are genetically compromised. Maybe yes, maybe no. You need a group of 3,000 individuals to maintain a genetically sane and stable community. Keep that in mind. So if we have that many in the world, then they're not genetically compromised. They're totally fine. Everything is totally fine. It's the class system that I have a problem with, but they are victims to it just like the rest of us are on the other end. I'm not going to go into politics today, but we can. I am planning for 2020 to finally start my Best of Line series. Kyle is one of the first beneficiaries, and then Mr. Oz will be the second. I will start short videos, see if I can, on Instagram with Best of Line. Best of Line means I take all the offerings from a house and I evidentiate the one fragrance that I think is the best for a variety of reasons, most of which will differ from session to session, I'm sure. Some of them will be beautiful, some of them will be interesting, some of them will be revolutionary or ethically sourced or very well designed or marketed or whatever. But I believe that sometimes, particularly when is the case with new houses, it's very important to actually look at one's work in ensemble, per total, to have an umbrella vision over what somebody does in order to get an idea of what their signature is, what their point is, what they're about. If they're full of crap, that's fine. If they're completely artistic, that's fine. But I think you can only form an opinion as a reviewer, which I now, I guess, officially am, and documentarist, to try to understand the maker, to understand their intention, to understand their style and aesthetic, to understand their capabilities technically, and to understand, their business model, everything. So, so what I will finally start doing is my Best of Line productions. I don't think they have a room here on the channel, but they will have some role, probably on Instagram TV. That will force me to keep it under 10 minutes, which is hard to do for me. There are a few other things that I'm preparing for 2020. I've got pulled into a few projects that I'm doing for free because I'm passionate and dumb. And who needs sleep, right? But also a few personal projects. I will not be making fragrance. Everybody's asking me that. That is not me. I've said it from the beginning and I'm sticking with it. But I am trying to provide input for those who need it. And haven't got installed M8. Mate? No, I don't know what that means. Reach out to me on Instagram. You can hijack my videos. You can hijack anything from me. Because yeah, so yes. I lost my train of thought. But there are a few exciting things coming up in 2020. All of them have to do with either tooling people or giving material as I have. So if you appreciate this kind of intention, if you like hearing me speaking in tongues, if you want casual conversation or nerdy stuff, I was talking about how awesome I am. Of course I was. If I don't, none of you do, apparently. It's representation. I am awesome. I'm so awesome. Everything is awesome. Ugh. Okay. No, I was talking about 2020. It's an exciting year. I think I succumbed to the idea that this is one of my paths to be a documentarist of fragrance. I'm not a maker of fragrance, but I'm here to kind of like plug in things for other people who do want to make fragrance, and to, you know, smack them in the face when something doesn't make sense, because I am good at concepting. So yeah, so that's it. 2020 is upon us. It started with a comparison between Clive Christian and its pedigreed predecessor, which they assimilated in the meantime. And let's say it together. Keep it kind, always, but keep it real. So, or should I say it, keep it real, because everybody's like, oh, I'm so real. If you don't like it, take it and leave it. No, that's bullshit. That is bullshit. Anybody who says that is not worth my time. You can do whatever you want, but truth is not worth dissipating or listening to unless it follows 2 out of 3 rules for me. It has to be true, or it has to be not now. It has to be true, it has to be useful, or it has to be beautiful, entertaining, good in some way, positive, lifting, something. If it's not 2 out of these 3, then you can take your truth, put it in a Word document circa 1997, print it out, fold it 4-6 times, put some spit in it, line your side, and gently inserted you know where, because it's not helping anybody. And if you can't keep it in, your truth, that means it's like a fart, you know, like a burp. That's no truth. That's not, you can't keep it in. I had to say it. This is true. Keep it real. Bullshit. Bull. Sit. Cool. I'm going to make some grapes. Cool. Yeah, keep it real, but keep it kind. And the most important thing, the most important thing, my English is getting numb. The most important thing is, wherever you go, make it better. Coffee on my tongue? Yes. Bad breath too, probably, from the same coffee I just mentioned. So I will leave you with it. I will see you next time. And until then, be good, folks. Be good. Be good. Or truthful. Or useful.